So now I'm going to get into law of attraction and the biology of emotions. It's incredibly important to accept negative emotions. So in law of attraction, we talk about an emotional scale, anywhere from joy at the high end to despair at the low end. And where you are feeling along that scale is ultimately an indicator of your point of attraction. So, unfortunately, knowing this, some people completely freak out when they're stressed, anxious, afraid, or feeling down in the dumps because they feel like that's their point of attraction and they're afraid of what they're attracting. And so I'm here to tell you there is no reason to fear negative emotional states because not only are they normal, natural responses to your body, your mind, and your life, but they don't last, and they're fleeting, and they will pass, and it doesn't disrupt all the momentum that you have in your life that's going a positive direction. So it's okay to feel bad sometimes. So you don't want to be adding another level of stress on top of how you're feeling by judging the situation as being bad and having negative repercussions. So by understanding the biology of so-called negative emotional states, then you can more clearly understand their purpose, and it'll help you ease up on yourself when you're in one of those states. So it's important when you are feeling bad to first acknowledge your emotional state, and second, allow it to be there. Don't try to repress it or stuff it down or avoid it. Just kind of let it be without judgment. Again, remembering that it is fleeting and it will pass. And then once you've kind of calmed down because you're actually just letting it be there instead of resisting it, then you can choose to get off the subject, to do something else, anything else that will help you slow the momentum of that state, rather than getting yourself all wound up, being paranoid that you're in the state in the first place. So once you've gotten yourself in the moment paying attention, you can use one of the power tools in this course to help you then get your thoughts, your emotions focused in the right direction. So now I'm going to talk a little bit and help you understand what's actually going on when you're in a state of worry, stress, or when your fight or flight response has been triggered. So what is actually happening is the question. Now, first I want to get into a little bit of background of why it happens. So if we had no natural stress response, we would be dead. And actually, better put, our ancestors would have been dead, in which case we never would have made it to this point. So your fight or flight response was designed to save your cave-dwelling ancestors from an untimely death in the jaws of a saber-toothed tiger. Now, we don't have saber-toothed tigers today, but it doesn't mean we still don't have that same response in our body. So what happens during that response is that oxygen gets pumped to the brain, which is why our heart starts beating faster and our blood pressure goes up. And we have cortisol and adrenaline and other chemicals coursing through our veins to give our body the energy that we need and our muscles the strength that we need to be able to respond to fear. That is what that reaction is. It's an instinct of self-protection so that we're able to either flee danger or muster the strength to fight. So today we are on the top of the food chain. And like I mentioned, we no longer have to fear being attacked by a giant predator, at least in most cases. But we all still recognize the symptoms of fight or flight. And it could have been from experiences when you've gotten cut off in traffic or you've been in an argument. There are many different reasons that it gets triggered. And it's not any mystery that stress is associated with a lot of medical conditions. And the reason why is because we have these physiological responses happening in the body when we're experiencing these high-level negative emotional states. And those stress hormones go throughout our body and start to do damage. At the same time, there's other things going on. So for instance, have you ever felt butterflies in your stomach when you were nervous or excited? So what's happening, and the reason why you're feeling those butterflies, it's not that there's butterflies there, obviously. The blood is leaving your digestive tract. And when you're in a higher state of nervousness or anxiety or fear, beyond what usually would cause butterflies in the stomach, then literally the blood is just saying, get me out of here and get me to your muscles. So who needs to digest when you're running from a toothed predator? A lot of people don't know that the reproductive process is also suppressed when you're under a high level of stress or fear, because saving your own butt would take priority over saving the species. But it's also why today people who are highly stressed can have a hard time conceiving, because the same biological functions are happening. Unfortunately, the chemicals and the hormones and the heart rate and the high blood pressure that happen during those experiences that are needed to save your life are supposed to return to normal and calm down after the Neanderthal would have been sitting back in the cave telling all of his buddies about his narrow miss. But unfortunately, in the modern world, they don't normalize. We end up developing a chronic stress effect, and it's because there is no threat of death. Everything looks and feels like a toothed predator, whether it's our bosses or our busy schedules or our children or our spouses, or feeling like we have an empty heart, or any other number of things that can stress us out. We end up in a chronic state of worry, anxiety, and stress. And so when you compare where we are today with our ancient ancestors in their caves being attacked by legitimate threats, you can clearly see that in many ways, our problems are imaginary. So what happens is we tend to worry. We get ourselves on edge and we stress ourselves out, and every new stressor that gets piled on top just adds another layer of stress and agitation. And then when we continue to focus on the problem, our anxiety gets worse. We build momentum, and eventually, in some cases, just from a bunch of little things, we find ourselves out of control. Our fight or flight response kicks into gear, but there is no real threat, and that's the difference. It's also a good thing in a way, because it means we have a choice. But when that happens and we find ourselves with our body freaking out for ultimately no clear danger, the mind can't say, here is the danger, now protect yourself. So since it's not real, the mind can't say, okay, now I'm going to stop it and it's over now and I'm okay, because there's no end to the thing that is causing the reaction. And so again, remember, the mind is trying to protect you. So you can see that the fight or flight response and the fear response and anxiety and nervousness and stress was designed biologically to be a good thing. It's supposed to be good for you to protect you. But because you're not thinking that in the moment, when your brain sees what's happening in your body, all of those symptoms, it thinks there must be something wrong. And in some cases, it can escalate you to a state of panic. And it can make you start to think that there's something wrong with you. And you may have even experienced this yourself or known someone else who, when their body's in fight or flight, they feel like they're dying. But it's just that their system, having this natural reaction, is getting out of control. You are under attack, but the assailant is you. It's psychological fear caused by your mind or your momentum or your vibration, not biological fear, which would have been a response to something real and present that's causing danger in your immediate environment. So it is very real, it feels very real, but you are fighting a battle with a phantom shadow when you're in that moment. So the best thing to do to avoid these extreme cases of stress, anxiety, or fear is to stop it before it starts. You want to catch yourself when you're feeling stressed or uncertain before it turns into anxiety or fear. And in that moment, you have more power to be able to redirect your thoughts, to change the situation, to change what you're focusing on, and to use the tools that you've learned before you spiral out of control.